Hey everyone, my name is Venelin. In this video, we're going to compare different types of models that the LangChain library provides. We're going to have a look at large language model, embeddings, and chat models. And we're going to compare three models from the Hugging Face models to models provided by OpenAI. Let's get started. A completely free tutorial that follows this video is available on ML Expert, and here you can find the prompt engineering guide. So we are today looking at AI with models, and you can go through the whole source code along with explanations on what is happening. So if you prefer to read, you can visit ML Expert, and I'm going to link this particular part of the tutorial within the description of this video. I have a Google Colab notebook that is already running, and the notebook itself is available on GitHub, so it's free for you to run through this. So here we have LangChain installation, OpenAI tick token. These are pretty much requirements for the models that we're going to have a look at. And then we are using Hugging Face Hub, since we're going to try some of the free models that are provided by the Hugging Face library. And then Sentence Transformers, another library that we are going to use just for the embeddings from this model. Here I have a lot of imports, and most of those are from the LangChain library, and we're going to go through all of those once we need them. Next, I have this helper function, which is going to just wrap some of the text or the responses that we get. And finally, I'm using getPass from the Python library or a module that is going to essentially make you input your OpenAI API key, and then from the Hugging Face Hub API token, which are going to both be needed for the purposes of this video or this code. So let's start with large language models, and you already are probably familiar with some of the most famous ones like ChatGPT, GPT-4, but there is also a push for open sourcing or creating free models that are going to replicate some of the results. And let's start with the template right here. We have a prompt template, and in it, I'm just going to pass in the template itself, which is very basic. You ask a question, and the question is marked like this. And then you expect an answer. And once you get this, you are going to create a prompt template. And from here, you can pass in a question, which is going to be the variable that we're looking at. So in order to run this, I'm going to create the question: what is the relationship between Jim and Dwight from the TV show The Office? So this is the question. And once we format the prompt with this question, you're going to get this text, which essentially replaces this part right here in the question with the variable that we have right here. All right. So next we get this Hugging Face Hub model. And in this case, I'm going to use Flan Alpaca base. And this is available from Hugging Face models. And you can see that this model is really exploding. It had a lot of downloads from the last month. And they're saying, or the authors are saying, that this is essentially Flan, which is a Google open sourced model, Flan T5. There is a link to the original paper right here. And then the Stanford Alpaca instruction tuning on top of this model. So it's the paper is called Flan Alpaca Instruction Tuning for Humans and Machines. And you can go a bit further into the different possible models that you get. So they have a lot of models right here, and the parameters are quite a wide variety also. In this case, I'm going to use just the base model, and I've also tried the large model. It's fairly fast if you're running on a GPU. And then the XL and XXL models are really large, so you will need something a lot bigger to try those. But let's see how you can use this into LangChain. So in this case, I'm going to run the Hugging Face Hub, which is a class that is provided by the LangChain library, and it is essentially an abstraction over all of the models that you can use for text generation. So in this case, I'm saying that I want to use Flan Alpaca base, and then I want a temperature of 0 in order to get not random results or somewhat deterministic responses. And then I want a maximum length of 64 tokens. And if you run this along with the question right here, It says that Jim and Dwight from The Office are two of the most successful actors in the show. They're both renowned for their roles in the show, and they have a strong bond that is evident in their relationship. So, this is a pretty weak response, I would say. It's pretty generic. This is the base model. You can try some of the larger models, but unfortunately, this is what you get on the free models side of things thus far. And then if we are using Text DaVinci 003, which is essentially going to give us this OpenAI model, and once I pass in temperature of 0, I'm essentially doing the same thing, formatting the prompt with the question, and let's see what the response we get. And I'm using the print response function in both of those cases, which is the helper that we created. So this is the response from Text DaVinci 003. And Jim and Dwight have a complicated relationship. They are often at odds with each other, but they also have a deep respect for one another. They're often seen as rivals, but they also have a strong bond of friendship. So this is much more nuanced answer. And if you are asking something like ChatGPT, you might get even better responses. But this is what you get from Text DaVinci 003. I would say much better compared to the Flan Alpaca base model. Next, we are going to have a look at how you can get multiple completions. So, for example, you might want to get multiple different responses. And for this purpose, I'm passing in a temperature of higher value 0.4. So essentially all of the responses are not going to be the same. And then I'm passing in number of responses 3 and then best of 3 as well. And I'm going to call the generate method this time, because if you just call the method or the model as a function, you get just single response. And if you call the generate method, you'll see the response is going to be this LLM result, and it contains a lot of stuff. And if you just get the text from it, you can see that we have these 3 generations. Another thing that the LLM result contains is the LLM output, and it's telling you the token usage, completion token, total tokens, prompt tokens, etc. And then the model name right here, which is Text DaVinci 003, as we've already discussed. Let's look at the generations. So Jim and Dwight have a complicated relationship. Initially, Jim and Dwight had a strained relationship due to Dwight's intense loyalty to Michael Scott and Jim's tendency to prank Dwight. However, as the series progresses, a mutual respect and friendship develops between the two. So another good response. Jim and Dwight are co-workers and frenemies. Interesting. They often engage in pranks and practical jokes, but also have a mutual respect. Okay, another good response. Jim and Dwight have a complicated relationship. Initially, Jim was constantly pranking Dwight and caused him distress. However, over time, they have developed a strong friendship and mutual respect. Okay, 3 somewhat different responses with some nuance to them. So these are pretty good, and you can get multiple generations using this format and calling the generate method. So let's continue with the embeddings. Right here, I have a long text that is taken from this screen rant, and it is related to the TV show The Office as well. So let's see how we can use this to create some embeddings. And I'm not going to work through this text, but I'm going to just show you how we can do that, the embeddings themselves. So in this case, I'm going to again use the Hugging Face embeddings, and this will use the sentence transformers library. And if you're not familiar with the sentence transformers library, it is essentially a model or a family of models that are allowing you to create embeddings for very short text, such as these sentences, as the name suggests. And there are pre-trained on various of models, and you can look through the different results. This particular one is, I believe, trained on Mini LM by Microsoft. So this is essentially the base model, and then there are fine-tuning it with their pair of dataset that they get. So if we go here and initialize the embeddings, again, we have this wrapper class around all of the embeddings provided by Hugging Face. And then we embed the text itself. Let me just run this cell right here. And then we can embed the text. It is pretty fast. And you can see that once we get the length of the vector embedding, it is a quite small embedding. This is the mini LM model. And some of the numbers you can see right here, essentially a small embedding based on the text. And if we run through the OpenAI embeddings, you see that those embeddings are providing much more expressive representations of the text. So you can see that the embedding size is quite a bit larger compared to the one that is provided by the mini LM L6. Also, you can use the models from sentence transformers that are based on BERT, and then the embeddings are going to be a bit larger, or roughly twice as little as those from OpenAI. And here are some of the numbers you can see from the OpenAI embeddings. So next we are going to have a look at the chat models. And those chat models, you can use ChatGPT essentially, and then GPT-4. And to initialize a chat model, you have to create an instance of the class chat OpenAI. And then we are passing in GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is essentially ChatGPT. And then I'm passing in a temperature of 0. And then I'm going to ask essentially the same question that we started with. What is the relationship between Jim and Dwight from the TV show The Office? And in order to ask this question, you need to wrap it into a message. And you're going to have to pass a list of messages. And in this case, I'm passing in just a human message. And let's see what is the response that we get from ChatGPT. And then I'm going to print the response itself. First, you see that we get this AI message as a response, which essentially contains the text and then some additional keyword arguments, which are essentially an empty dictionary. And let's look at the response. As an AI language model, I do not have a personal opinions, etc. So it is giving you a very basic response, and it is essentially self-defending that you should not have a listen to what he's saying. But then it says Jim and Dwight have a complex relationship throughout the TV show The Office. At the beginning of the series, that are portrayed as bitter rivals, with Jim often playing pranks on Dwight. However, as they show progress, they develop a mutual respect for one another and become friends. They still play pranks on each other, but it is done in a more light-hearted and playful manner. Overall, their relationship is a mix of competition, humor, and friendship. So you can see that the depth of the response compared to Text DaVinci 003 and the free models is much better. And in order to essentially, in this case, remove this part, I'm going to pass in a system message, which is essentially the start of the message or the first prompt that you're giving. And this is also available within the API from OpenAI. So in this case, I'm going to pass this system message. You're an expert on the TV show The Office. So this context is given at the start. So I no longer need to have to pass in this part from the question. And the question that I'm going to ask is, what is the relationship between Jim and Dwight? And let's look at the response now that we are passing those two messages. And this type of messages are allowing you to create a chat, and you can also input AI messages within this array. So you can simulate answers from the bots. So here is the new response. You can see that as an AI language model, part is no longer available from here. And then Jim and Dwight have a complicated relationship. However, they develop a mutual respect. Essentially, this is the pretty much the same response, but here it differs a bit. Jim even becomes Dwight's best man at his wedding. Despite their friendship, they still enjoy playing pranks on each other from time to time. Okay, so a bit different response, but the initial part is also removed, which is great. With this system message you can pass in. All right, so the final thing that I'm going to show you along with the chat models, before showing you how you can stream the responses, is going to be the prompt template. And in this case, I'm just asking the same question. What is the relationship between Jim and Dwight? And then I'm saying essentially the same thing that we have right here, along with a prompt template, which I'm going to specify right here. And I'm going to run this through a system message prompt template, and I'm going to pass in this text. Then I'm going to ask a question, and I'm just showing you how you can do this. And then in order to run through all of this, I'm going to use the chat prompt template from messages, and I'm going to get the chat prompt from those two template prompts. And then I'm going to format this with a style of reply in thoughtful and philosophical manner, and then the question, which is essentially this one. And I'm going to show you what you get. So this is the input that you're going to give to the ChatGPT model. You're an expert to the TV show. You reply in thoughtful and philosophical manner. So this is based on the format from the prompt right here with the style keyword. And then what is the relationship between Jim and Dwight? So this is the question that we are providing from here. And I'm going to create those messages and pass them to ChatGPT. And first, I'm going to ask the style to be thoughtful and philosophical. Let's see what response we get from ChatGPT here. The relationship between Jim and Dwight on The Office is a complex one that evolves over the course of the series. At the beginning, they are portrayed as antagonistic towards each other, with Jim often playing pranks on Dwight and Dwight taking his job as an assistant to the regional manager very seriously. However, as the series progresses, we see that there is a deeper connection between the two characters. Okay, so let's see. Ultimately, the relationship between Jim and Dwight is one of the most interesting and dynamic on the show. It shows that even people who seem to be complete opposites can find common ground and develop a deep understanding and appreciation for each other. Okay, so I would say that the style that we requested, thoughtful and philosophical, is very nicely expressed from ChatGPT. And I would like a reply that is sarcastic and outrageous. Oh, you mean the dynamic duo of the Scranton branch? Well, Jim is obviously Dwight's mortal enemy and arch nemesis. They spend their days plotting against each other and engaging in epic battles of wits and pranks. It's like a modern day version of Batman and the Joker, but with staplers in jello. Okay, so it is giving you a very much context from the show, and then I really like this example. It shows that the model is very fairly well trained on the actual events from The Office and probably some of the memes that are available online. All right, so you can see that this works pretty well with the prompts and LangChain. Very cool. Next, I'm going to show you the streaming chat API. And in this case, I'm going to just create a chat OpenAI instance. I'm going to pass in streaming true. And then the next parameters right here are pretty much standard. But then we're going to use a callback manager that is essentially printing everything that is streaming to the output. And this is the streaming ChatGPT. And I'm going to use exactly the same prompt that we used last. And then I'm going to just save the response here and see what is happening once we call this. And you can see that the response is very quickly streamed to the output. I'm going to run this once more so we can see it again. Yeah, the streaming is working. And you can use this in order to create your own applications that can do streaming. In this video, we took a look at what different types of models are provided by the LangChain library. We started with some of the large language models, some of the free ones, and then some of the available from OpenAI, like TextDaVinci 003, which is now a bit older model and not so expressive as ChatGPT and GPT-4. Then we took a look at the embeddings possibilities. Then in there, we had a look at the Hugging Face embeddings that are available, for example, from the Sentence Transformers library. And then we took a look at the OpenAI embeddings, which is much more expressive and I would say much more powerful embedding possibility. And finally, we took a look at the chat models, and essentially we had a look at ChatGPT. So in this case, we had to create some messages that are required from the LangChain interface, and then we saw how we can use a system prompt, then how we can create an array of messages and pass them to ChatGPT. And finally, I've shown you how you can even use prompt templates within ChatGPT. And at the end, I've shown you how you do streaming right from the LangChain library. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, please join the Discord that I'm going to link down in the description of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.